welcome to tonight's event. So this is, we do regular BAFTA's Horror Studies SIG events, usually around once a month. For those of you who haven't attended before, Shelley and I are co-conveners. Give us a wave, Shelley. So we organize monthly events, and we're really excited about this one tonight. So yeah, looking forward to it, and thanks to everybody for turning out. So this is our last event of 2023 as we're kind of winding down to the end of the very busy semester. So I appreciate everybody taking the time, and especially to our amazing lineup of panelists that we have today. We've got lots and lots of people, so really looking forward to it. So yes, tonight is all about doing women's global horror film history. I'm going to introduce our chair for this evening, who we're very excited to have pulling this together. So Valeria Villegas Lindvall is a senior lecturer in film at the University of Gothenburg. And Val specializes in Latin American horror film with a feminist and decolonial focus. She's a postdoctoral research assistant for Professor Alison Peirse's AHRC-funded fellowship, Feminist Horror Cinema, and she's also the recipient of the Early Career Award 2023 by the Latin American Studies Association. She's also reviews editor for My Feminism Visual Culture, which is where the panelists have come from tonight. I'm sure Val will explain more. And also a member of the advisory board of the My imprint at Punctum Books. Val's recent publications include contributions in Folk Horror, New Global Pathways, and the Oxford Handbook of Black Horror Film. She's also an active collaborator for physical media with Arrow, Vinegar Syndrome, and Powerhouse. Take it away, Val, all yours.
Thank you so much, Laura. Thank you, Shelley, as well, for having us today. I sound really cool on paper. I'm really happy to welcome everyone today to this panel, Doing Women's Global Horror Film History, a panel on feminist retellings of history. And as Laura has very aptly underlined, this is part of a special forthcoming dossier with My Feminism and Visual Culture, which is an open access impact rated journal on feminism and visual culture. And we will be releasing this by the spring of 2024, so it's just around the corner. It was edited by Professor Alison Peirse, who is joining us today, and who will have the word first before we introduce the screening of our pieces. So today I wanted to also put together this conversation with one of our some of our over 20 collaborators of video essay making. It was a fantastic experience, and I can't wait to get to the questions and to talk to the different people that are joining us today. So today I'm just going to introduce first Alison before we go on to see the trailer of this dossier. And Alison Peirse, Professor Alison Peirse, is our fearless leader in this project. We've been working together, and it's been a pleasure and a blast. Alison Peirse is a professor of film studies at the University of Leeds in the UK. Her books include Rewriting Television, forthcoming with Rutgers in 2024, Women Make Horror, Filmmaking, Feminism and Genre, that also came out with Rutgers in 2020, Korean Horror Cinema with Edinburgh University Press 2013, and After Dracula, the 1930s horror film with Torres 2013. You can find out more about her research at alisonpeirse.com. And the name of her piece is Knit One Step Two, which I had the absolute pleasure of subtitling to Spanish, and has accrued multiple awards and honorable mentions, most recently at Insólito Festival de Cine Fantástico in Peru. So without further ado, I'll just open the floor for Alison and for the screening of the trailer.
Hi Val, how are you?
All good. All good. Very happy to have you also to talk a little bit more about the dossier in general and what we're doing with this particular special issue.
Great stuff. And would you like to chat first, or are you wanting to screen the trailer first? What's your preference?
I think we can start, teasing everybody's curiosity
Yeah,
first.
yeah.
So
Okay.
you've put together this massive effort, which is comprised
Yeah.
of over 20 video essays that cover different corners of the world. So
Mm.
one of the main lines of discussion, one of the things that we showcase as a part of even the title of the panel, is that this is a take as a feminist retelling of history. So what is behind this particular, let's say main thread that we're following in the special issue?
Well, I set up the project because I was working across lots of different areas and I was noticing a series of gaps. So in horror studies, as you very kindly mentioned, my book Women Make Horror came out in 2020, which Val wrote a beautiful chapter for. And that was great. So 2020 was an amazing year for women filmmakers and horror because we had our book, and then we also had Alexandra Helen Nicholas's book on women horror filmmakers, and we had Patricia Pister's book on women horror filmmakers. And then over the next few years, like 2020 onwards, there was this wonderful outpouring of conference papers and PhD theses and journal articles and books that have emerged both at the same time and in response to that work. And that's great. But what I noticed was in this work in horror studies, it was overwhelmingly about white women directors, predominantly from Western countries and predominantly working in Anglophone countries, occasionally with a French director thrown in just for, you know, a bit of a change. And I was kind of like, well, I know that there are these women working all over the world and they have been working all over the world throughout history, but I'm not seeing it as much in the criticism that we've got at the moment. And so I really wanted to think about how we might do that. At the same time, I was reading a lot then in women's film history, and they don't really write about horror much as a genre in women's film history. So I felt like there was a gap there as well. And then I got really into video essays. I love video essays, although they're a very new medium for me. And there wasn't, again, much that was being done consistently on horror film. And I was like, so there's all these gaps. And then at the same time, I keep being annoyed that when we study filmmakers as academics, we're still predominantly defaulting to studying directors. And it's fine to study direct, like I get why directors are important, but women have worked in all kinds of roles all over the film industry, all over history. And I really wanted to try and capture that a bit. So these are all the gaps that I was thinking about when I started putting the project together. And so what I came up with was doing women's global horror film history, which I really hate acronyms, and I hate, there's this like really nerdy like science thing where you come up with the acronym first and it's this really cool name and then you kind of work around it. And I was like, no, I'm just going to say what I want to do. And this project has been ongoing for me for 3 years. And I really wish I'd come up with a cool acronym that you could say. My friend Colleen, who's also a contributor, is always like, how do we say doing women's global horror film history for short? Is it like DWIG-WIF? Is it DWIF? I've no idea. I really didn't think this one through. So anyway, the project is an homage to the book Doing Women's Film History, but with the focus on global cinema and on horror. And so this project is about women filmmakers who work in the horror genre, who work in non-Anglophone countries and are from what we might consider as the global majority. And I'm using the global majority as a term from Rosemary Campbell Stevens. And she describes it as referring to Black, African, Brown, Arab, mixed heritage, indigenous to the global South, and or racialized as ethnic minorities. So I wanted to do a project about all of the women, not all of the women, the many women who are working within these global majority contexts in horror film that I just wasn't seeing being really discussed in academic literature on horror. And because I love video essays, I wanted to do it as a video essay mentoring and training course so that it would have greater access. Like journal articles are great, but like 3 people read them. Whereas an open access video essay online, lots of people can see it. So I really picked video essays and wanting to work with the journal My, which is online and open access. So everybody is going to get to look at this stuff and it doesn't have to be paywalled. So these were my feelings with the project anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's also like a feminist exercise to be able to democratize that like that generation of knowledge, which is, and of course, it's super exciting that we get to do it with you as well.
Yeah, completely. And I really like the journal that we're talking about here is my MAI, my Feminism and Visual Culture. So this video graphic special issue will be published in spring 2024 with my, so it will be online, open access. I'm hoping somewhere around February it will come out and we will hit all the listservs and make sure everybody knows. And it will be actually now in total, there are 30 video essays from all over the world with an accompanying creator statement for each one. So if you want to just watch the video essays as a standalone piece, you can. But if you want to read a bit more about the maker's intention and some of the history of the filmmaker and the film culture that they're studying, you can get that from the accompanying essay as well. And in addition, we've also translated the entire special issue into Latin American Spanish and Brazilian Portuguese, just to make sure we're getting a really wide remit. So lots of people can view and enjoy our special issue.
I'm smiling very wide because it is also very much in accordance with the politics of the project itself and the idea of rethinking the way in which we have this point of entry to knowledge that very often is occluded by all these, well, not only paywalls and the very neoliberal take on academia that these practices signify, but also has to do with the access of information in different languages. And to me, it has been like such a blast to see that this is also a part that we can share with everyone that will be accessing this particular issue. And I would also like to ask you, because I mean, of course, the audience doesn't know that these statements that you mentioned also respond, and the pieces themselves, they respond to a particular prompt that is inspired in doing women's film and television. So could you tell us a little bit more about these kind of instructions that we all took to heart and adapted to our pieces?
Yeah, so I was aware that I wanted all these video essays about women filmmakers working around the world in lots of different cultures and contexts at different points in time. But I was also aware that a lot of people might want to do that, but might not have the confidence or the videographic skills, or they might have the practical skills, but not necessarily the intellectual confidence, even if they would have definitely been fine doing it. So I set up, it's ended up being about a year long. Originally, it was supposed to be 7 months, but it's ended up being about a year. And it's a year-long online training program, which was teaching everybody from scratch how to make video essays, and not only the practical things, but how to conceptualize and think about the ways that you might want to make a video essay. And there isn't one way, and there's no correct way to do any of it. So we've gone through this year-long training program with online technical training and kind of peer review, mentoring, and masterclasses. But even then, I still thought you can't train people for a year and be like, okay, now go make your thing. Well, you could, but people will be like, oh, shit, where do you start? What do you do? So what I've tried to do is like embed prompts, so like quotes from the book Doing Women's Film History, that ask us to think about how the work of the woman filmmaker is embedded in the time that she works and lives in, and the place that she works and lives in, and the industrial and cultural context that she's working in. And I asked everyone to respond to that in some way. And it doesn't have to be overt at all. It was just kind of something that creatively I wanted people to reflect on as they made their piece. And then I wanted them to fly off in their own directions after that.
Yeah, it was such a giving exercise as well. I mean, I for one was one of the ones that was terrified, count myself as terrified of editing. I hadn't done it in like hands down 15 years, so it was relearning all of this. Now I'm dating myself about how old I am. But, but I thought that it was such a fascinating exercise as well, because I noticed, of course, also your filmmaking has this kinds of these gestures already. I was thinking about three ways to dine well, which is available on Alison's webpage.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have to say, props. I love that piece. And I'm thinking that rethinking about the people driving these efforts, and that you choose very consciously to list the most senior collaborators that are female collaborators.
Yeah, that's really important to me. So I started learning to make video essays, I guess last year, I don't know, maybe 18 months ago. And I come at it from a very academic background originally. Like, I've got a PhD in psychoanalytic film theory for my sins, even though I know Val also is a psychoanalytic person secretly. But part of my feminist work when I take the video essays is my kind of critical thinking about the gaps that we have in the histories that are written. So when we think about horror film histories, I'm often interested in the people who aren't part of the kind of the mainstream histories, and then thinking about who are these people, where do we find them, what did they do, and how, crucially, how might we illuminate their work? So I think every video essay I've made that's like a proper video essay, not just an exercise, and they're on my Vimeo. At the end, I list all of the films that I used in my video essay, but I don't just list the title of the film. Underneath, I list the year and the country, and then I list the name of the most senior woman who is credited in a production role. So for my part, as I'm interested in filmmaking behind the camera, I don't list the actors. I'm less interested in the actors. I know they're important. I know they're very important, but I'm less interested in them. And so I'm going through film listings thinking, which is the woman on here and what role does she have? And it makes really interesting patterns. So on a lot of older horror films, you might get down to script supervisor or makeup support before you find a woman. And then on others, there are certain roles that women have clearly been let into, and these patterns have become more apparent the more I do this work at the end of my video essay. So sometimes women are allowed to edit, sometimes women are allowed to be screenwriters. Very occasionally, women are allowed to direct. That has got better in the last 20 years in horror. But I'm fascinated by this kind of feminist act of listing the woman that did the most senior role, and then seeing where the patterns emerge in the kind of roles that they are able to do. And then the equally damning, no women listed as part of the production crew, which is what I do have to write sometimes as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this particular choice also puts forward how incredibly productive it can be to engage in these practices, even though
Yeah.
they can be scary. And this is one of the main lines of conversation that I'd love to get fired up with our collaborators. And I think, well, for those asking also in the chat, and I'm really happy to see all the interest in all of this work. Alison has done a fantastic job out of, mentoring us and also keeping us sane through the process.
I try.
Also with yeah, I mean, we had the help of fantastic collaborators for these master classes and different, all the intricacies of putting together a video essay. But this dossier is going to be, as we've mentioned, open access at myfeminism.com. It is forthcoming in the spring of 2024. Somewhere around February, we should be able to share that with you guys. And of course, as an open access publication, it will be available for you to, take a look at the statements and the pieces and so forth. I said we will have, it is over 20 collaborators, if I'm correct.
It's 30. We've got 30 at the final count. So
30
including, yeah, I did a new piece for it. So my knit one stab to you is like a separate thing, and I've made a new thing just for this special issue, which is on my Vimeo, and I will link it in the chat. But yeah, there are in total 30 separate video essays and written statements that are coming everybody's way very soon.
I was always very excited when I said like over 25 and always hoping that it will be hitting 30.
Yeah, it's 30.
Fantastic. I'm so happy about this, and I think it has been, enough to whet people's appetite. So if you could screen the trailer, the teaser trailer, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, this teaser trailer was edited by Dana McLeod, who is an absolutely brilliant video and performance artist based in Montreal, and she put this together for me to promote it. So I hope it works. I'm still not very good at technology, but here we go.
What's an horror movie if there's no screams?
That is fantastic. So, like it is all of the pieces that are featured. There's a
Yeah.
lot of goodies going on. Yeah.
And just to say, the films and filmmakers that are covered are from Africa, East Asia, the Middle East, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. So we've got a truly wide remit, and from about 50 years of cinema as well. This isn't just contemporary filmmakers. We're going right back into the 1970s in some cases.
And I mean, I'm just so really excited for the dossier to come up, and very excited for the conversation that we have forthcoming. And actually, we are going to share some of the pieces with you today. And Alison has linked, or will link. I don't have the chat overview here. The video essay that you also have in this special issue. And mine will also be available there. Very excited about it coming up. Actually, I saw some frames in the teaser trailer, which was like, yay, this is a thing that's already out in the world, or will be out in the world, and it is in a tremendously good company of all the colleagues that have put their best efforts forward. Well, I will not be screening mine, but it will be available there. The Scalpel Sharp filmmaking of Michelle Garza Cervera, which covers her work as some Mexican director. But I think we're ready to introduce the participants. Thank you so much, Alison, for giving us
No
this.
problem.
And I would love to introduce the panelists today. We have an all-star lineup as reflective of the all-star lineup in the special issue. So today we have with us Beatriz Saldaña. She is a PhD candidate, curator, director, and film critic student studying Brazilian horror films made by women. She is currently based in Paris, where she is undertaking a doctoral internship as a guest researcher at the Sorbonne Université. The name of her piece is Female Monstrosity and Revolt in the Woman Who Makes Doves Fly. So welcome, Beatriz. We also have Kate Robertson, who is an Australian-born, New York-based author and critic. She has written about art, film, and culture for a range of publications, and is the author of Identity, Community, and Australian Artists, 1890 through 1914, that came out in 2019. I Travel Every Day, that came out in 2021. She has spoken at events including Brooklyn Horror Film Festival, Axe Wound Film Festival, the Miskatonic Institute of Horror Studies, Final Girls Berlin Film Festival, and I saw that we have them today in the audience, Cine Excess and Fear 2000. The name of her piece is The Spectre of Ophelia, Girlhood, Love, and the Supernatural in Mari Asato's Fatal Frame. So welcome, Kate. Thank you for joining us. Then we have Quan Shang, who is an independent filmmaker with a keen focus on the intersection of technology and the human experience in the 21st century. She received her education at the Beijing Film Academy and is currently filming, writing, and dissenting in Beijing. The name of her piece is Kuai Dan with the AI in caps. So welcome, Quan. Next up, hi. Next up, we have Krista Calvo, who is a third-year PhD student studying child autonomy and moral panics in Reagan era horror cinema. She has a background in childhood studies and forensic osteology. She is currently focusing her research efforts on looking at childhood in global horror cinema and exploring ways to de-Westernized concepts and interpretations of the childhood experience in the genre. The name of her piece is Dos Hermanas, exploring childhood, sisterhood, and femininity in the short films of Sofia Carrillo. Welcome, Krista. Then we have with us Alice. Alice Haylett-Bryan is a lecturer in film history at Queen Mary University of London. Her recent publications include Inhospitable Landscapes, Contemporary French Horror Cinema, Immigration and Identity from 2021 in French Screen Studies, and The Weird Sex Scenes of Yorgos Lanthimos in the Cinema of Yorgos Lanthimos, edited by Eddie Falvey in 2022. And she's a co-editor of the 21st Century Horror Series with Edinburgh University Press. And the title of her piece is Investigation, Realization, Recognition, Women Editors in South Korean Horror Cinema. Welcome, Alice. And then we have Uchiamere Kwam Uoma, who is a PhD student at Bournemouth University. His research interest centers on Nollywood, the horror genre, and the representation of women in African films, particularly Nigerian. He is a visiting lecturer at the Winchester School of Art, part of the University of Southampton, where he works with and supervises master students. He is the co-author of the essay Influence of Gory Pictures on Select Newspaper Readers in Owerri, Nigeria, that is featured in Indian Journal of Economics and Development from 2018, has also co-authored the book Introduction to Broadcast Commentary and Critical Writing that has come out in 2021. And the name of his piece is Agatha, They Are Coming. So welcome, Uche. All of these pieces will be featured in our dossier. And right now I'm super excited to just open the floor for all of our contributors, aside from Alison, Bea, Kate, Quan, Krista, Alice, and Uche, in order to talk and discuss a little bit more about what is behind these pieces. They are incredibly different stylistically. They have different points of departure when it comes to subject matter. So I'd like to open the floor with the following prompt about what compelled you to engage with the work of this particular set of practitioners or a particular practitioner that you have focused on, and how was that choice? How did you encounter the subject matter for this piece? So if we have any volunteers to start us off.
I can go first. I think that my interest in Sofia Carrillo came from a lot of different places because I researched children and childhood, and all of Carrillo's work is very centered on children and childhood. Additionally, Carrillo's Mexican, and we don't get to talk a lot about Mexican filmmakers, especially not women. Everybody is just talking about oh my God, everybody knows it, Guillermo del Toro and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity to center a female filmmaker who does horror, who's from where I'm from. This is going to be really cool. But then she does stop motion. And I was like, this is the holy grail because it's such a niche corner of being a creative. Plus, she's a multi-hyphenate. And I thought that, as I was watching her content, I started realizing that all of her stories that she creates, they sort of like tell on each other. They're always about family and generational trauma and femininity within, growing up as a Latina and what that means and what's expected of you. And I just thought that she was like the perfect person to showcase. And she had recently done I can't remember the name of the anthology, but it's on Shudder. It's features women filmmakers. If someone else remembers, you can put it in the chat. But she did all of the sequences that were between every short film in the anthology. And yes, yeah, it's XX. Thank you, Shelley. But yeah, and I was like, well, people are only seeing this part of her work. They don't know anything else about this really deep self-discovery that she does through her other short films. And what I thought was fun about working with her material was that, so what I did with the project was that I used those two films and allowed them to kind of, show how they tell a very similar story. And I wanted to use a third film that she created, but I could not get my hands on a version that was good enough quality to use in the video essay. I now realize that I could have just asked her because of the video essay project. She's my friend on Vimeo now. So thanks, Alison. But the audio from that film that was poor quality, it just fit perfectly on top of my video essay. Like I did no magic with that. Like I just sort of set it up and I was like, okay, let's see what happens. And it was absolutely perfect. So I think that, at least with my project, I got sort of this like holy trinity of like stop motion animation, short films, horror, childhood, and then of course all of it, well, I guess that's four, but talking about like the uncanny feminine and sisterhood in Latina culture and childhood and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I was just like, there's no other person that I would want to use for this project because she like fits so many slots and I love her work too. So I hope that answers the question, but
And I mean, that's so exciting because there are several of these pieces also feature a number of different films, and doing these kind of comparisons, contrasts, and this kind of dynamic visually speaking, I think it translates to several of the pieces and it resonates with many of the things that we saw today. So I would love to also, open the floor to on this reflection. If there's somebody else that would like to also share with us. Thank you, Krista. Yeah, Bea, please.
Firstly, I want to apologize for my English because I don't talk in English on daily basis, but I hope you can understand me. And I'm very glad to be here between all these incredible researchers, and yeah, very, very grateful for Alison's project and all that we discussed it and all we see for those months, and it was really, really awesome, incredible, and I learned a lot of things. And I chose to talk about Rosângela Maldonado because the studies of Brazilian horror actually are something very recent. It begins in the mid 2000s, mid 2000s, and the topic began to appear in academic works very recently. And so, but usually the works are focused more on contemporary cinema. And I heard about Rosângela Maldonado, but was always as a footnote in the story of José Mojica Marins, the Coffin Joe, because they had worked together. And I have a great interest in discovering obscure films and untold stories. So I think that it's that call my attention. And so 6 years ago, I watched Mulher que Põe a Pomba no Ar for the first time, and I wrote about the film for a website. And later, when I started my PhD, with a research on Brazilian horror films made by women, I knew that Rosângela will be my main topic. And despite of being despite of being the first Brazilian woman to direct a horror film, she's still ignored and very marginalized. And I thought, and even I've associate that to the fact that she made porno chanchadas that are a kind of comedy sexploitation films, and that in a Boca do Lixo, I don't know you are familiar with this this name, but it's a cycle of film in Brazil that was very precarious but independent and profitable scheme that they made in 70s in São Paulo, and there's a lot of prejudice on this um, in relation about films that are made in Boca do Lixo and porno chanchadas. But even though her films are very low production value and they are not very well made, as by conventional standards, of course, are seen as true treasures for me, in the sense of they are allowed to reflect on the topic of the women directing films in Brazil, and also the role of actress, the female representation also, and of course the preservation of Brazilian cinema, among other aspects. And yes, yeah, and I think I want to do this with all the respect I think she deserves, because she's really obscure a figure and marginalized, and so that's why I choose to talk about her.
Thank you, Bea. This is very fascinating, and it speaks to this point about illuminating the parts of the circumstances of the women working in these particular industries. I can't wait to know more about your statement, and I mean, I really enjoyed the piece. Then we have our next speaker. Oh, we have Kwan raising their hand.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
You can go.
Please.
Okay.
I was keeping an eye on everything. I'm so sorry.
Okay, well, I'll go. Hi, everybody. Kwan. So I think I had a very special relationship with this film from the first time I watched it, and it was just at the back of my head forever. And then when I encountered this project, I knew it was the choice for the very first reason that I don't have the statistics, but you rarely see men going crazy on screen, deranged, shouting, delusional for 3 minutes straight. It's kind of a rare find, I think, in global horror history. For that, even though we are doing feminist studies, we're doing females horror film history, it's kind of not what's the word, undeniable that this genre has been sort of a warm bed for exploitation of female sexuality and their identities and their just figure on screen. And I think this would be a perfect opportunity for me to interact with this piece. And moreover, as I delve into the creators of this film, and I realized that the scriptwriter I'm gonna do it again. Mizuki Yoko kind of flipped the whole story. She flipped it to even a 180 degree, because as I sort of put it in the title card, that this piece was originally titled Reconciliation. For a man like her, the ideal kind of a conclusion to a story of betrayal is always reconciliation. Whereas Mizuki introduced this haunting and eerie and quite exciting, actually, fear of vengeance into the story. and it just occurred to me at one moment that, oh my gosh, she's doing wreckage, and she's sabotaging, and she's dismantling this old folklore, and it kind of conjured a call or an urge within myself, also as a women creator, wanting to respond to that call and to also do wreckage. And this is what I came up with, you know, with especially with AI, that is to destruct and destroy a film with the power of AI. I mean, you can view it two-sided, but it's a way of destruction, just per se. And it's even more exciting with the commentary, not only on horror film itself, but also AI, because we've kind of coded it with all of these, I don't know, like envisions into the future about how great it's going to be, but it's just another evidence or proof that AI is able to deconstruct and able to destroy. So this has become a very emotional journey for me, as well as I discover the possibilities of doing females, women, okay, I'm sorry, but it's kind of doing females horror, a global female horror history, but also discovering what I can do with technology and how I can interact with this media, with all of these new technologies, and thinking about the technology themselves. And that will be it from me.
Thank you so much, Juan. I love this comment about, you know, sometimes you have to torch to start anew, and it is sort of like this particular underlining of these subtleties, or maybe not so subtle. It was stunning the way that you've intervened this with AI. I can't wait to read your statement. Thank you so much for shedding light on this inspiration. And yes, I'm so sorry, Oche. I know you had your hand up, so we made a little bit of a flip. But please share with us. I'm really curious about how you chose these sets. What a stunning moment of the beheading, I have to say.
For me, what compelled me to engage with the work of the curator actually as follows. Firstly, the movie resonates with Madame Koi Koi, a legend common in Nigerian mystical tales of boarding house experiences about a frightening female ghost who terrorizes innocent secondary school boarding house students at night. Some of the initial questions that invoked in me then when I was selecting the movie to do includes why are these terrifying characters in Nollywood horror stories often for female uneducated when we are looking at it from the lenses of educational, Western standards and also of deprived social economic class and living in rural Nigerian setting. So that was one of the reasons what compelled me actually to select the movie. Then another was the selected Nollywood film Manifestation, produced 2019, speaks of Agatha, and her real name is Nkem Roberts, a female serial killer ghost in a haunted, abandoned school, as I said earlier, who murders visitors to the haunted premises without no reason. So I was drawn to that because it's like these are stories that we've been told. Because I went to a private secondary school back home, and the movie just resonates and makes me remember that. Also, I'm drawn to the story because Agatha is a female, a Nigerian national, aged principal or teacher in the school suggested by the set design of the space that used to be designed designated, to say, in the office. So I was looking at loads of things. I had loads of things I wanted to talk about in the video essay, but I was just constrained to 3 minutes. So I was looking at just loads of things more. So in summary, therefore, I was just interested in how these representations might exemplify the demonization of Nigerian women in Nollywood films, which are classified as horror. Such depictions are arguably a pattern in the class of the films. By the way, I use the words classifiable or class in relation to horror inclined films of Nollywood, because there is at the moment nothing in Nollywood discourse or distribution categorization defined as Nollywood horror. And part of my research is interested in mapping this as a genre in this space. So this just what's actually brought me to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Uche, for sharing and also for giving us this insight about Nigerian horror filmmaking. Very exciting stuff to come. And I would like to invite both Kate and Alice, yes, yeah, I see you raise your hand, to also talk shortly about how you got into this subject matter.
Okay, yeah, I'll go next. So I got into looking at Korean women editors actually for a conversation with Alison right at the start of the project. I knew I wanted to be part of the project, and I think I might have kind of roughly pitched her an idea around The Uninvited, which is a female-directed Korean horror film. And Alison kind of was like, okay, yeah, but Molly Kim wrote a chapter on that in Women Make Horror. Should we do, and we started talking about A Tale of Two Sisters, which has the second editor is Lee Hyun-mi, who's a female editor. And so that kind of got me thinking about, okay, here is a female editor in a very successful, famous South Korean horror film. So I started off there, and then I did what all good academics do and went on Google and typed in women editors South Korea. And all of a sudden I realized that actually there is this huge history of women editors working in South Korea, hugely successful, very well respected. You kind of come across articles, top 5 South Korean editors, and 3 out of the 5 will be women. And we have women who are working with not only with some of the kind of most famous or renowned directors, currently working, but also if you look back, 20, 30 years, you can still see there are women there, kind of cutting the film, doing that editing. So it was like a sort of moment of revelation of starting realizing that there's this huge amount of films out there that we're all very familiar with that have these women behind the editing desk, and in these very respected and award-winning roles of editing. So that was the first thing for me. I was like, this is amazing. And trying to do that process of looking through these women's filmographies and then trying to find connections and trying to find what other films have been edited by women, and TV shows as well. And then I was kind of thinking, okay, well, what do I do now? Obviously, I think Alison said in the start, we're so used to talking about directors and screenwriters as this kind of point of authorship. But when it comes to something like editing, at what point can you say that's an editor's decision or that's the director's, kind of creative input? Or it's very hard to kind of pinpoint where artistic, creative inspiration has come from, who's made that choice to make that cut in that way. So I was kind of unsure at first how I was going to go about structuring the essay. And I started to think about where editing is really important within horror cinema and thriller cinema, because I'm kind of looking at horror and thrillers. And for me, it was really in the creation of suspense, and where we get those moments in horror cinema where people are going to look for something, or there's this moment of revelation. So in a couple of my films, such as The Wailing and I Saw the Devil, we get these kind of serial killer narratives where people go out and they have to find the killer. And the use of editing is so important in those moments because it's all about building tension, building those layers, slowly revealing information to us and having this kind of great moment of revelation. And I felt that for me, that kind of mapped my own process of kind of seeing and acknowledging the work of these female editors. So that's when I then started putting these kind of films together. And I mean, I had such a wealth of material to choose from. I know that for others who are on the panel and who did essays, the material might be quite hard to get hold of, whereas I was dealing with some of the most successful Korean films of all time. So, I had material that was very easy to get hold of, but then it was like, how am I going to put this together to create something that maybe speaks to the power of editing within horror cinema?
Thank you so much, Alice. And there's much respect for your bookshelf right right behind you. So that's, yeah, like we're all like envying what is happening behind you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think that also, I mean, just collecting these reflections, and so clear it is that we have a collection of pieces that of course shed light on these other strands of history that have been for long, obscured, but also to think about reevaluating the availability of the material and the recirculation and circulation of the material. So I'm super excited to, like rewatch what we watched today from Alice. And then we have our last speaker, we have Kate. I would love to hear more on your piece on a video.
Yeah, hi. I can keep mine pretty short, but my starting point was really different than everyone else's. I'm actually trained in art history. Film was sort of a secondary love for me and new-ish career. But the biggest thing that I noticed when I watched Fatal Frame years ago was that there is a reproduction of a really, really famous pre-Raphael artwork by Millet called Ophelia. And we see it really early on in the film in the headmistress's office, and then the film returns to it again and again. And then there's actually a reproduction, sort of a recreation of the actual drowning of Ophelia in the film, which I included at the very start of my video essay. But Ophelia, it turns out, just guides the entire film. So the students are rehearsing this performance for this end of year sort of. It's a song, it's music, it's very what you'd expect in this film. So I actually used that diegetic sound in my soundtrack, which was probably the hardest bit of my film. Actually, I would not necessarily decide to make that decision to do that kind of composition myself. Again, not my strong point. But there's just this real fascination I found watching this film with Ophelia, with this sort of idea that in pop culture she represents girlhood and innocence and love. She's this icon of true love in a lot of situations, but she's also quite she's this tragic romantic figure, perfect for teenage girls to latch onto. And this film is very much about girlhood and love. It's this queer, supernatural horror love story, which I thought was really fascinating. And it's also gothic, which I'm personally obsessed with, have been since I was quite young as well. So it was kind of just a film that I found truly interesting to watch and interesting to think about, with this really strong tie to art history that I couldn't ignore. So that was where my origin came from.
Thank you so much, Kate. And then we have this piece that does something very different with different points, a different point of departure, and also speaks to the intertextuality of visual culture, kind of like these very specific purpose of the female image in those kinds of contexts. What happens if we reevaluate it? So I am super excited. I mean, I have been saying it over and over again. I sound like a broken record, but it has been such an honor to see all of these pieces together before anyone else gets to see them, because the dossier is coming up soon. I really appreciate to be in company of such brilliant points of view, and also I think we've managed to tease it enough to showcase the valuable work that is being done with this dossier, and with this special issue with my feminism and visual culture. So thank you guys for sharing your insights. I think we have everything here. I think we have a lot of this covered, from different visual cultures to different functions of the of representation and the image, the way that in which it is reevaluated on the female lens of female aesthetics and female politics. We have a lot of stuff to come, and I think we have successfully gotten everyone on board to take a look after also screening that fantastic teaser trailer that we got. So this has been a massive effort. I just have to give props to everyone that has been involved, and of course please stay put. Next spring this will be coming out. Unfortunately, we have run out for time for questions. This has been a very fruitful way of showcasing everything that there is, or at least a tiny portion of these 30 entries. I am so glad and so grateful that I got to moderate this panel, despite all the tech hiccups, because robots are coming for us eventually. Or at least just they just came for me today. I did something they didn't like. And anyway, thank you so much. In the case that you would like to contact our video essayists and maybe reflect a little bit more on their pieces and pick their brain if it's all right with you guys, all of these details will be, of course, there will be a page for author bios when the dossier comes up. In the meantime, if there's any other way that you'd like to be contacted, you can of course share it in the chat. I'm sure people that are here today with us will appreciate it. Until then, thank you so much. You've been amazing in sharing your insights and all that is behind. Thank you so much, Alison, for undertaking this massive task. And thank you to Laura and Shelley. So I will leave it to you guys to wrap up.
So I just want to say thank you so much to Val for chairing and for handling technical issues deftly. Thanks so much to Ali for bringing everything together, and thank you so much to all your excellent panelists and contributors, and we really look forward to seeing the work when it comes out. Thanks very much, everybody. See you again.